For 9 long years, he was completely silent. And then, Vijay Mallya, the man at the very center of one of India's biggest financial sagas, finally decided to talk. Today, we're diving into the two very different stories that define him. Is he the flamboyant tycoon who built an empire from the ground up, or the fugitive who left a mountain of debt behind? Let's figure it out. So, Mallya's opening shot is this powerful claim. He believes the story that we all think we know is nothing more than a media creation, a narrative that turned him into, as he puts it, a lightning rod of public anger. This recent interview, it's his one big attempt to finally set the record straight and give his side of the story.
All right, so here's how we're going to break this all down. First, we'll look at what I'm calling the Mallya mismatch, the gap between the headlines and his version of events. Then we'll go back to the good old days, the good times, to see how he built his empire. After that, we'll board Kingfisher Airlines for its very turbulent flight. And of course, we have to tackle the massive 9,000 crore question before we chart his journey from, well, hero to zero.
You know, at the very heart of this whole thing is a major clash of stories. On one side, you've got the public image, a guy who just vanished, leaving chaos and a huge amount of debt behind. But on the other side, you have his defense, which is this really complex story of business failure, alleged government pressure, and what he sees as a targeted takedown. Now, just to be clear, our goal in this explainer isn't to play judge and jury. Not at all. It's to really dig into that mismatch. We're here to understand why there are these two completely different accounts, using the information that he's finally made public.
To really get a grip on the man and that mismatch, you have to go back, right back to the beginning. His whole career was shaped by his relationship with his father, Vijay Mallya, who was a business giant himself. But as you're about to see, their ideas about how to run a business could not have been more different.
And wow, look at this. You couldn't find two more different approaches, could you? His father was super frugal, a hands-on micromanager. Vijay, though, he was the total opposite. A big-time risk-taker, a flamboyant marketer who believed in letting his team run things. He even said his dad thought 100 times before spending, while he probably thought twice. That difference right there, it explains pretty much everything that followed.
And this is where that risk-taking approach was pure genius. Think about it. In a country where you can't advertise alcohol, he takes this old beer brand from 1857 and gives it a whole personality. He made it fun, exciting, something to aspire to. He got around the ad ban with surrogate ads, and, most importantly, he became the living, breathing embodiment of the brand. He was a walking billboard for the good times.
And this quote just brilliantly illustrates his point. Mallya insists he never called himself the king of good times. He says, "Nope, I put that on the beer label. I was building a brand." The media, he argues, just took that label and stuck it right on him. And that persona, well, it would both launch him into the stratosphere and be a big part of his downfall.
So he's riding this incredible wave of success with his liquor empire. What's next? He makes his biggest, most ambitious move yet, launching Kingfisher Airlines. This was the absolute peak of his power, but it was also the beginning of a truly spectacular fall.
I mean, the airline's rise was just insane. It launched in 2005, and by 2008, it was the biggest airline in India. But then, the storm hit. The global financial crisis sent fuel prices through the roof, the economy took a nosedive, and by 2012, Kingfisher Airlines was grounded for good. Okay, now hold on, because this is a massive part of Mallya's defense. He claims that when the crisis hit, he knew he was in trouble. He says he went to the finance minister and said, "I need to downsize this airline." But he was allegedly told, "No, keep flying. We need the jobs, we need the connectivity, the banks will have your back." If that's true, it completely changes the story of why he kept borrowing money. Another huge point of debate was the buyout of the low-cost airline Air Deccan. The public story is that it was a desperate, crazy expensive move just so he could start flying internationally. Mallya's justification? He says it was a cold, calculated business move, a strategic play to merge with his competitor and get rid of a disruptor who was driving down prices for everyone. Two totally different reads on the same event.
The collapse of the airline brings us to the money. The giant, 9,000 crore question at the center of this entire saga. So let's break down the numbers, at least from Mallya's point of view. First up, this is the number he doesn't dispute. Mallya states that the official judgment debt, so the principal loan plus interest owed by the airline, was a staggering 6,203 crores. That's the baseline, the starting point of this whole financial mess. But then, and this is a huge but, he points to this figure. He claims that by selling off his assets, which he'd personally guaranteed against the loans, the government has already recovered over 14,000 crores. Wait a minute. That's more than double the original debt. That fact alone raises some pretty serious questions.
Now, this is the legal brand that's been slapped on him, willful defaulter. And it's a heavy one. It's a very specific term for someone who has the money to pay back a loan but just chooses not to. It paints a picture of a man who just thumbed his nose at the banks.
But here's the kicker. Here's the question Mallya poses, and it cuts right to the heart of everything. He claims he made 4 different offers to settle the debt between 2012 and 2015, and the banks rejected every single one. So, if that's true, does the label of someone who chooses not to pay really fit? It makes you think, doesn't it?
And that brings us to the final and most dramatic chapter of this story, his departure from India, the massive public fallout, and all the events that would cement his image, for better or worse, as a fugitive.
In his own words, this is how he sees his downfall. He doesn't see it as just a business that failed. He sees it as a deliberate, coordinated effort by the government and the media to turn him into a national villain and tear down everything he built.
His departure from India is the pivotal moment. The public narrative is simple, right? He fled the country the day before a big court hearing. Classic guilty man on the run. His version, way more complicated. He says he left for a meeting in Geneva that was scheduled way in advance, that he even told the finance minister he was going, and then, while he was gone, his passport was revoked, effectively trapping him abroad. Oh, and you can't tell this story without talking about the party. It was 3 years after the airline had gone bust. Thousands of employees hadn't been paid, banks were out billions, and he throws this huge, lavish 60th birthday bash in Goa. The optics were just terrible. It became a symbol of his supposed arrogance, and it really fueled public anger. Even he now admits, looking back, maybe it was a mistake.
So, after all of that, we're left with this one big question hanging over the whole saga. Is Vijay Mallya a victim of circumstance, a showman who just became a convenient scapegoat when the economy turned and the politics shifted? Or is he the architect of his own downfall, a modern-day Icarus who just flew too close to the sun? The story is far from over, but at least now you've heard both sides. The final verdict? Well, that's for you to decide.